Support for the Screen Addicts podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SCREENADDICTS at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.
Recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Fire up the projectors, turn on your TVs, and adjust your antennas. It's time for the Screen Addicts podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Screen Addicts podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Steven Silent Scope Sosa.
And I am the other co-host, Chris, the Killer Villegas.
And thank you all for listening and joining us on this other episode. Unfortunately, for everyone who is a fan of our Wizards episode, Donald will not be joining us this week, to much dismay of his new and growing fan base, but he may be back sooner than later. You never know. I was telling Chris that he was so good that we may be replaced, so he probably might not ever come back again.
He's going to start his own show, and then we're going to have to guest on his show.
Right, the Donald voiceover podcast.
Yeah.
Please have us on. But thank you again, Donald, for joining us last week. That Wizards episode was a pretty big hit. I was really happy how it turned out.
It was nice. It was fun.
If you haven't already noticed, our nicknames always allude to the topic of the week, and with the release of John Wick Chapter 4 coming out this Friday, we will be talking about assassins. Assassins in movies, the most skilled and deadly assassins, and basically we'll be ranking our favorites. We were talking about TV assassins. We couldn't really think of too many, probably because we didn't do as much research on them, because, Chris, there are a ton of movie assassins, man. I couldn't even keep up with this.
Dude, you know, there was, we put out a social media post earlier today, and people just started kind of flooding it. And I'm like, man, there are so many. One person had said on one of the comments, she could do the top 10 easily. And I'm like,
oh,
yeah, this was hard to narrow down to 3. And I'm sure, you know, people, as always, are going to be like, why are they top 3 and not this one and this one? You know what? It's my damn list. I love these top 3. And this is what we're going to roll with.
This week they shall be our kill list. Well, actually, no, we don't want to kill our picks. But, no. I mean, that's the thing about stuff like this. It's all subjective. It's all opinion. And, man, I made a joke about a post about my Wizard video game movie poster. And obviously, I don't think that Wizard's better than Gandalf or Dumbledore. But people were like, no, that's wrong. Wrong, sir. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why it's a joke, people. And it's just like this list. Like, there's so many. I'm sure there's some that overlap. And there are some that they draw a fine line. So don't be surprised if some of them don't make our top. We have a ton of honorable mention. And I guess we can name a couple of honorable mentions for TV. So without further ado, the contracts have been placed. Let's name our top 3 assassins. I'm going to go first this week, Chris, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Because you always go first. And I don't know. I was really excited about this one. And probably because my number 3 is, at the moment, the most generic pick that we can have right now, which is John Wick. I know that seems kind of easy and kind of cheesy and maybe a little sleazy, but it's on brand right now. Like, the whole point of this episode is because of the release of Chapter 4 of John Wick. I'm doing a rewatch of the Wick movies. I finished the first 2, but the first one still, in its simplicity, I still think that might be my favorite one. I love that movie because it kind of gave you a glimpse of what this entire world of assassins was like, and it doesn't really involve you so much as the sequels do. And there's something to be said about that. That being said, the character itself, John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, who has had huge franchise hits in the last 3 decades of his career, comes in late swinging, man. He comes out with this movie, John Wick, and it took everybody by surprise. Nobody expected it to be as good as it was. He was really all about it. He did his own stunts for the movie, took it very seriously, and when you watch the movie, I mean, he killed the man's dog. Who's not going to get pissed off if you kill somebody?
Where you draw the line.
That's where you draw the line, indeed. And I absolutely love that movie. And I don't think it's the most recent one on either of our lists, but it's just something to be said. Like I said, it's came out in 2014. So it's almost 10 years old. It's crazy to think that the first John Wick movie is almost 10 years old. It's really kind of baffling how fast time goes. But my number 3, easy pick for me is John Wick.
Man, you don't fuck with Baba Yaga, bro.
No, you don't. You do not. And my God, he was just killing people like an art form. And it only gets better. And the kills in that are like more creative than the deaths in Final Destination, man, because he's just killing people with books, with horses, katanas. I mean, he's just doing everything. And apparently in John Wick Chapter 4, they promise that this one's going to have some of the most creative kills that you have ever seen in an action movie, period, much less this franchise. So crazy to think. Again, 3 hours long. And I wonder how much of that's actually going to be action, or if they're going to be doing more world building. I mean, I guess probably both, because at that length, you can do both.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have time to get all the kills and then some story in as well, which I think we talked about this a little bit before, that we were kind of iffy on, how much killing can you exactly have in 3 hours? I mean, I'm sure there could be a ton. I think it's going to be just like a wicked drug trip, and you're going to be going from 100 miles per hour from the first second to the end. We'll see.
It's definitely going to get 5 drops of blood on Jeremy's gore score. I'm hoping anyway.
Oh, the old gore score. We missed that.
Since he's not here, I'm stealing it from him, but I still give him full credit.
All right, my number 3 is kind of a recent movie. It came out in 2021. You can watch it on Netflix. This is going to start a trend in my picks, as you'll see. Gunpowder Milkshake. And the assassin in that movie that I'm picking is Scarlett, which is actress Lena Headey. Dude, she's so badass in this movie. The main character in the movie is Karen Gillan, and she's amazing in this movie too. But just like some of the stuff that Lena Headey puts off in this movie is insane. Like, she's the most person that everybody's scared of in this movie, and when she finally gets to work, you can see why. And this movie, man, to me is super underrated. It bodes an all-woman cast. Karen Gillan, Lena Headey, Carlo Gugino. And get this, it has Michelle Yeoh and Angela Bassett.
That is funny. Speaking of recent picks on our list, like, you could just pretty much say Gunpowder Milkshake for your number 3, because every single one of those women provided some level of sheer excellence of execution, and I actually really enjoyed that movie. And I agree with you, it's definitely underrated. I don't think a lot of people talk about it, but that's kind of a problem with Netflix movies in general, is the fact that they may have like a big week. People will watch it for that week and then almost disappear into the ether and never to be talked about or seen again, unless there's a sequel to it. Like, as a matter of fact, there was an Assassins movie that came out a year or two ago with Mary Elizabeth Winstead called Kate. Do you remember that movie, Kate?
Yep.
And that was a pretty big streamer when it came out. It was really good. She had this like Atomic Blonde level action style to the movie. It was very gritty, and she was really good in it. And after it was done for that week, it just was never brought up ever again. And it seems odd, but I think, isn't there a sequel to Gunpowder Milkshake in the works? From
what I hear and what I've read, there is. It's a slow coming to fruition type of thing, but hopefully it gets done, because, man, I really, really love this movie. It was pretty damn awesome. So if you haven't seen it, head over to Netflix. If you want just a fun shoot 'em up movie, check out Gunpowder Milkshake for sure.
Yeah, good pick.
I'll go number 2. Ham.
Man, let me tell you, I've heard nothing but solid number 2s for the last damn week. I don't know what I did wrong in my life, and I blame you and Donald to start, but that's all I've been hearing.
Absolutely.
I was like, this is great. This is what we've devolved into, but you know what? People are listening, so I'll take it.
All right, so my number 2 pick, I'm going back to 2011, and our girl Zoe Saldana, man, in Colombiana. Dude, Zoe Saldana, first of all, amazing actress. I mean, she holds the top spots for movies that she stars in, grossing all time. Hell of an action star. And I don't know if this was one of her first big action movies, but she does everything right. She's fierce. She's deadly. definitely deadly in this movie, and man, she got some good kills. Some in this movie, there's some really good, fun kills for sure. So that's my number 2 is Colombiana.
That came out in 2011. It's that old.
Yeah.
It feels more recent. Wow, that's crazy.
And apparently she doesn't age because she looks the exact same.
Right. I was just about to say she looks the same she looks the same as she did in Center Stage in 2000. Yeah, that was a really good movie. I think that was part of the Luc Besson style of filmmakers and stuff. And it's that was really, I haven't seen that one as many times as I should. I actually should go back and rewatch it. I remember there were rumblings about a sequel to that as well. Like they really want to make a lot of these into franchises, but I guess it never got as much traction as it should. Or just the fact that she was just so popular after Guardians that there was no stopping her. Like she's doing Guardians, all the MCU movies, Star Trek. Well, I mean, I guess she just did Avatar. But, working on Avatar is like a 5-year journey, man. Like you don't just stop working on that movie. You go in and you go out. So I guess that holds up potential franchises whenever you have somebody who's already in other franchises. Yeah, that was a pretty good movie. It kind of reminds me of that movie. Well, no, I guess she wasn't. Peppermint with Jennifer Garner, because I just watched that recently.
Jennifer Garner.
But she's not really an assassin in that. She's just like a woman who trains to get revenge. But I think it was like the same producers or something. Yeah, Colombiana. Solid choice. My number 2 is a duo, and I haven't done this in a long time where I have picked multiple answers for one, but I think that this applies because it is a classic, and they are 2 of the best hitman/assassins in the business, and that is Jules Winfield and Vincent Vega, played by Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. Now, these 2 guys, they work for the big dog Marcellus Wallace. They go out on these hits. It's what happens in between these hits that makes them so much more entertaining. Not only does Jules Winfield carry his beautiful soliloquy from the Bible that isn't actually a Bible verse, but he recites it and then murders. And I just think that there's something to be said about these 2 guys and how they wax intellectual, top pop culture, just their regular lines of dialogue that makes them so much more relatable than any other character. And I mean, they're not about the action, they're more about the talking. And the way that Samuel L. Jackson's character has this epiphany of life and how he didn't die when someone just unloaded all these bullets around him, and it's just a crisis of faith. And it's just such a great, clever duo that people clamored for them to do more movies together. And I think they only just did that one military movie, Basic, together. But their on-screen chemistry is so good, and it hinges that movie. They bookend that movie just basically on those 2 characters. And sure, I could have seen a little bit more on the killing aspect of things, but you don't really need it because you know what they're about, you know what they do, you know their business. And something similar to that is, speaking of the Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell play 2 hitmen in one of my all-time favorite movies, In Bruges. The only reason I didn't really put them on here is because they don't really do... I mean, they basically are in Bruges because they're waiting for the contract to kill somebody. So it's like, I'd like to have a little bit more, productivity, more activity from my cold-blooded killers. And so I that's why Jules and Vincent topped them. So that's my number 2 pick. The honorable mentions are ridiculous. So many of them. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I guess I will start. I mean, you have some too, right? You have plenty of honorable mentions.
I got 2 or 3 that I can mention for sure.
Yeah, sure, man. Go for it.
First one I have, and this is a shout out to my good friend Brandon Gonzalez, man. He would kill me if he would assassinate me, I could say, if I didn't mention this actual assassin, and that is Chris Kyle.
Of course. It's only named American Sniper. Yeah.
So, man, and in the movie, I believe Bradley Cooper was Chris Kyle. That movie it's an amazing movie. It's an amazing, I'm not going to say true to life story, but it's close enough to where you could get the feel of what he had to go through and what he did in his life. Chris Kyle, true American hero for sure.
Did you know that movie in 2014 was the highest grossing movie in America in 2014. And this is in a time with superhero movies, you know, all these big franchises, and that movie grossed more than every other movie domestically in 2014. I know it has that good old-fashioned American hoorah type of style, and it's probably what propelled Maverick to the top too, you know, that just kind of that American good sense. But it's just, it was crazy to think that, oh my gosh, you know, in the height of Avengers and stuff like that, like American Sniper's the #1 movie of the year. That was what was really impressive about the film. It just caught on. Clint Eastwood found something in that where he just was able to tap into the public, man, and it just dipped that well. But that's a really solid pick. And I like how that movie really deals with more of the psychological aspect of someone who is you could arguably, from a morality standpoint, say that snipers are assassins because that's what they do. You know, they are sniping people, they are assassinating targets. And I liked how that movie really dived into the mental aspect of the character. Because, I mean, you see a lot of these characters that are just, it's more played for action heroes, you know, action movies. And so you don't really need to dive deep into the psyche of some of these characters. But with that one, you really do. And you really see the emotional toll that it takes on him. And yeah, Bradley Cooper got nominated for his first Oscar for that movie just because of all the things that he had to do. And man, it's unfortunate what happened to the real guy. Like, it's just such a sad story all around and all that stuff. That's a really deep and thoughtful pick, Chris. I wasn't expecting that.
And this is the only reason Chris Kyle didn't make my top 3 is because we're Screen Addicts. We deal with a movie. If we were dealing with real life humans, Chris Kyle would be #1, absolutely.
Sure.
Movie, it was good, but I like my assassination movies and assassin movies a little more, like you say, just a little more action, a little more, you know, let me leave this world and go to a fun world, you know? A fun world of killing, which is weird to say, but
is that
also
not like Disney World?
Right? Is there not a ride there?
The murder ride. Hey, that's in Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, actually.
My other 2 honorable mentions is T-1000 from Terminator.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that works.
That works.
Technically, so does the first one when you think about it. All Terminators are sent back to kill somebody, so that is a good point.
Yeah, and then my last one is El Mariachi. And as Antonio Banderas, dude, just laying folks down.
Especially Salma
Train
Hayek.
Killer.
Yeah,
I mean, but who wouldn't?
Yeah, that's a solid movie. Because I think that in El Mariachi, it was played by a different actor. That's only because Rodriguez didn't have the budget. But once he got to Desperado, then it was all guns ablaze, man. It was such a good movie. And Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I was a little disappointed because Johnny Depp, you know, his character's addition to the story was pretty interesting, but I don't know, man. I just love Desperado, though. It's such a good movie.
I love Danny Trejo.
And somehow he ends up in all 3 of them, and he dies in every one. I'm like, is he the same character, or is he playing a different character? I don't get it.
No, it's his uncle and different uncles in each movie.
His uncle, his cousin, and his own damn son.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. Okay, so let me rattle off some of these. This is ridiculous. I had some old, some new. You know what's funny is that me and Sonia just rewatched Grosse Point Blank. I had forgotten how good of a movie that is, especially how good John Cusack is as an assassin. He's so neurotic when it comes to the social issues of his life when it pertains to Minnie Driver's character, his old high school fling. But then when he gets into action mode about being an assassin, man, he's on point. He can fight, he can shoot, he can talk his way into something. I mean, it was just such a great movie, and I just forgot how good it was. Going back to the 90s, Bridget Fonda was in a remake of La Femme Nikita, which I guess Nikita was also a TV reboot, but La Femme Nikita was a movie written and directed by Luc Besson, who played a woman who was brought into this world of assassins. She was trained to become an assassin, and they picked these beautiful women to kind of infiltrate these certain areas, almost like Red Sparrow, you know, Jennifer Lawrence's movie, and stuff like that. And I always loved Point of No Return. That was really good. Anton Chigurh and No Country for Old Men was an amazing character, and he won an Oscar for that movie too. And just his choice of weapon, cattle prod,
man,
Yeah, Javier Bardem playing Anton Chigurh. Jason Bourne almost made this list. I don't really know if he should have or not, because that's essentially what his character was. He was an assassin for the government, for the CIA, for Treadstone. But see, the whole point of the movie is that he lost his memory, so he doesn't know who he was in his previous lives. He's kind of making amends with his life. So I didn't really want to add him to that list per se, because he wasn't really an assassin anymore. Chow Yun-Fat, you talked about your nickname, The Killer. Chow Yun-Fat in John Woo's The Killer in Japanese audiences. I mean, that's an amazing movie. And Chow Yun-Fat was in his first American movie, The Replacement Killers, where he's playing yet another assassin. That's a great movie. 13 Assassins has 13 Assassins, the Takashi Miike movie. Benicio del Toro in Sicario. Hell, Sicario means assassin in Spanish. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, both assassins in love. Nice little rom-com twist on the assassin genre. American Assassin with, what's the kid from The Maze Runner? But it also had Bruce Willis in it. That one was okay. Taylor Kitsch was the bad guy in it, which was kind of weird. The Mechanic with Jason Statham. That was pretty good. And you know what? I'm going to just round it out here with Charlie Baltimore, who was played by Gina Davis in The Long Kiss Goodnight. Great assassin character. But yeah, man, I think that about rounds up the honorable... Oh, well, we were talking about TV, right? We didn't...
Yeah, and I have Charlize Theron in Old Guard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're immortal assassins. Solid pick. That's another newer one.
Those are, and Old Guard 2 is about to, I think, is going to come out soon.
The one that I was thinking of was the one assassin from Killing Eve, played by my dear Jodie Comer, plays this character Villanelle. Now, I would probably put her number one over all of these characters. She is absolutely amazing in that television series, and I don't really think that it ended very well. I was somewhat disappointed with the final season, but yeah, Villanelle in Killing Eve is just an amazing character, and Jodie Comer plays her so magnificently. She's so crazy, but yet you love her. It's a weird dynamic that she has with the audience. She's definitely a great anti-hero character because her personality is just so out there, and she could be cute, she could be sweet, she could be crazy. It's just such a great performance. But yeah, I would definitely put Villanelle as probably my number one if this was about television characters, but it is not. It is indeed about movies. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we name our number ones, I wanted to talk about something real quick with you, Chris. And what do assassins need? They need expert level precision to execute their victims. And you know who has expert level precision tools? That would be Manscaped. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and use Manscaped to hurt anybody or anything. I am speaking simply on the precision of, say, for example, the Lawnmower 4.0, the new hedge trimmer for Manscaped. You can speak on some of their devices, can't you, Chris?
These assassins, not only do they pull off some of the cleanest kills, they look good doing it. And you got to look good when you're killing good. You know what I'm saying? So most of these badass assassins are clean shaven, and it's got to start with a good shave from the beard hedger for Manscaped. You know what I'm saying? Get it all cleaned up, because you don't want to go out there looking all scrubby when you about.
And you know what? I know John Wick had long hair and that raggedy beard, but I guarantee you he used the Lawnmower 4.0 downstairs. We just never see it because he's always wearing those black suits. But yes,
right.
So if you also want to look clean and refreshed, visit manscaped.com. If you're going to purchase anything from there, use the promo code Screen Addicts and earn yourself 20% off and free shipping. Again, Screen Addicts is the promo code. Go to manscaped.com. Our number ones. The best in the business, the ones that we definitely would not hire to do anything to hurt anybody because we're good people, Chris. We don't need to do anything like that. That's why we simply just watch them do it on TV. So, our number ones. And you know what? I'm going to go first because I'm going to let you finish in style. My number one, speaking of Luc Besson, I'd already made mention of him from La Femme Nikita. He created a character in 1994 called Léon the Professional, played, of course, by French actor Jean Reno. I absolutely love this movie. I love this character. And it was also Natalie Portman's first film, her on-screen debut, where she plays a young girl named Matilda who sees her family being brutally murdered by the gloriously over-the-top character played by Gary Oldman, and she seeks refuge with a man who lives down at the end of her apartment building, and she doesn't know that he's actually one of the best cleaners in the business. So, if you've never seen The Professional, I highly encourage you to. The action is amazing. The relationships are great. The acting is just amazing. I said amazing twice, but that's just how good that movie is. And Gary Oldman, oh my God, he chews the scenery up. And not in an overly campy way, just in a good old-fashioned villainous way. And I will have to say, though, that there are two cuts of this movie. One is the American cut, and the other one is the international cut. And I've got to say, man, the international cut's kind of gross. It like implies a relationship between Leon and Matilda, who again is like 12 years old. It's pretty nasty. I did not like it. He doesn't reciprocate her emotions, but they kind of lean into this like weird dynamic between them. Whereas the American version, the more palatable and preferred version, where he sees her as like a surrogate daughter. It's like a father-daughter dynamic instead of the ultra gross international version. So if you are going to see The Professional, stick to the American cut. It's a lot better. It's not icky. The only gross thing about it is when Leon puts bullets in people's bodies.
I wonder if Pedro Pascal did some of his research to protect his kids from Leon.
I could actually see that happening. I mean, if you want to talk about television, I mean, yeah, Pedro Pascal from the TV world, I know he's not an assassin, but in The Mandalorian, I mean, I guess The Mandalorian could be considered an assassin if he's hired by somebody to be one, but definitely a good point. And you're right, I never really noticed any kind of parallels there, but, you know, older guy, rough, grizzled killer, looking after a little kid. I could definitely see it as Leon in space.
Dude, and I tell you what made Leon so badass. And it's not how he can use a gun, not how he can kill people. It's them damn glasses.
Those circular frames, those like circle frames
right.
he had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and milk. He loved to drink milk. See, milk does a body good. Makes you a more proficient killer. Well, you know, it's funny because I think one of the working titles of the movie was The Milkman because he's always seen drinking milk in the movie. But I guess Leon the Professional just sounds a lot better, which it definitely does now that I think about it.
100%.
But, all right, so that's my number one, Leon, played by Jean Reno in Luc Besson's The Professional. Chris, your number one, please.
All right, my number one, and, you know, like I said, I kind of had a theme with my picks, and I'm staying with all women. And this is probably one of the best assassins on screen that I could ever think of. Woman or man, like, she's a freaking killer. And that is Uma Thurman in Kill Bill as the bride. Mm-hmm. If you're any type of screen addict cinephile like we are, you've got to love Kill Bill. Quentin Tarantino, I mean, 2 of his movies made our top 3s. The Crazy 88 scene, if that doesn't seal the deal for Uma Thurman being one of the baddest ass assassins ever, then I don't know what will.
I mean, just one of the best action characters, period. That's a solid choice, man. I definitely would have had her on my top 3 somewhere. And, I mean, arguably, you could put her at number 1 on mine as well because she got to play the role twice. And there's still talks about a Kill Bill Volume 3. And I don't know if it's ever going to happen. At this point, Quentin Tarantino has already said that his last movie is going to be something else. But as far as Beatrix Kiddo, no spoilers, I don't think, The Bride, that is an amazing role for her. And the fact that she did a lot of her own stunts in that as well is pretty good. Not to diminish any work that Zoe Bell, the Australian stunt woman Zoe Bell did, but, you know, Uma Thurman really wanted to immerse herself into that part, and she wanted to do a lot of the stunt work. And that's always so much better when the actors want to do their own stunts. It's kind of like going back to Keanu and John Wick. It's like, it just looks better because it is them. It just doesn't feel fake, and it feels more realistic. And I know there's a lot of wire work and a lot of hammy type of choreography in Kill Bill, but that's kind of the point. That's kind of that old school, like, Asian martial arts.
Crouching Tiger,
movies. Hidden
Dragon.
Right. I think that Kill Bill, man, oh my God, it was so good. Both of them. Like, there's elements in both volumes where she just does some truly amazing stuff. You know, you see her killing the Crazy 88 in Volume 1, and then you see her in Volume 2 going through this entire training regimen, this entire training montage, and it's so good. And how she goes and gets her sword from Hattori Hanzo, and even her one battle with Elle Driver, played by Daryl Hannah, it's an absolutely great character. And I bet a lot of people looked at that character and said, man, I would have loved to have played that role. But that's a great number one, Chris. You did well, man. Your hit list is tops with The Bride.
And all women. I could tell you, man.
That is true. Chris, you are a chivalrous gentleman. I never would have thought so.
It is Women's History Month, and I wanted to give props to all the deadly women out there. That's weird.
Right? All the women that can whoop our ass. Shout out. Speaking of, it's like Angelina Jolie and Salt. Like, name your Angelina Jolie movie.
Or even Wanted.
That's right. Yeah, they are assassins.
She can bend the bullet.
Man, I keep thinking, I'm glad we're remembering these on the podcast rather than when we stop recording.
After we're done.
But it's funny that you picked all women. That's a really, I mean, I know that wasn't intentional. That's just how your list fell, right?
Mm-hmm. It is, man. And like we said before we started this, I mean, there's so many assassins in these movies. And it's so hard to go from even 10 to 3, and they ended up my top 3. I'm like, some of my honorable mentions were guys, but these women, man, they are just so good in these movies, and some of them underappreciated, like you said, like Gunpowder Milkshake, man. Go watch that movie if you haven't seen it. I freaking love that movie. And then I also had, just another honorable mention off the top of my head is Jessica Chastain in Ava.
Oh, yeah, that's another recent one. That was pretty good.
She was really good, too.
And that's something that Chastain, she doesn't really do a lot of action movies. So it's really cool when they hop into a different genre like that. I think that's really good. They try something different. Kind of like how even though the Lawnmower 2.0 is marketed for men, it's very much used by women as well. And it's funny because, for example, my wife keeps stealing my lawnmowers, and I'm thinking, well, I guess it's for everybody. And much like your list, women could dominate the market at Manscaped. Just use the promo code Screen Addicts at manscaped.com. We need to hire a hitman to kill some of my plugs. All right, Chris, so you had talked about a couple of submissions, right, for that post of who some of our listeners' favorite assassins were?
The one that I shared, I got Shay Griffin Hartzog, obviously with great taste, my man. The Bride was the first one he had mentioned, obviously. Best. Also, he said Agent 47, the Hitman from the video game series. Not so much the movie. The movie was iffy, but still a great assassin. And then
that's how bad those movies were. It's like it says Hitman in the title, and we didn't even acknowledge them. Like that's how bad they were.
And then this one too. Like I didn't even think of this until I saw this comment. But Shay Hartzog again said IG-88.
Oh right, of course he would have a Star Wars plug.
I got one more from your friend Allison Ducote. It has 2, Deadpool and Hit Girl. And you know my love for Hit Girl, man.
Yeah, I mean, is she an assassin? I guess she is. I mean, he just trains her to kill people, but I don't think she ever took payment from anybody. But yeah, that'll work. Deadpool for sure. We'll give him assassination cred. We also had a couple other submissions here. Albie Mejia. Oh man, this is a great one. Vincent in Collateral, played by Tom Cruise. That's a great pick. That's a good movie too. If anybody's ever seen Collateral and you want to see Tom Cruise and just this ultimately slimy villain role, definitely one to watch. Walt Threckhold also said Anton Sugar from No Country for Old Men. And Kirby Norell said Leon the Professional, and Red Sparrow, played by Jennifer Lawrence. And Marco Andrews also selected Leon. Man, Leon the Professional, he was quite popular in there. I guess that's why he was my number one.
Shout outs.
Dude, how can I go through this whole episode of Assassins and not talk about Assassins with Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas?
Dude, really?
I mean, how dumb. Like, you even talked about Antonio Banderas with your pick. How did we forget Assassins? That's ridiculous. Well, I'm glad we didn't forget. That would have been terrible. Well, I think now we pretty much closed out as many as we possibly could. This could easily be a 2-parter, or like you said earlier, a 10-character pick. I mean, there's just so many to choose from. But that being said, send us out, Chris.
Thank you for joining us again this week. This one was a fun one. Assassin movies, man, they are always such a fun watch. Since you are here and you are listening, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and then leave us a review as well, man. That helps us get seen on all the podcast platforms. It helps us bring more content. If you love us, let us know. Leave us 5 stars, and we will even read the review on our mini-sode, which we do have a new review. We'll be reading it. Come on here later this week. If you left the review, listen for your name. If you're on all the social medias, give us a follow. On Facebook, look up the Screen Addicts page, and then look up the Screen Addicts Fanatics group page. We are super engaged there, dropping trailers and movie news and all. On Instagram, look up Screen Addicts Podcast, and also on Twitter, look up Screen_Addicts, and Addicts is spelled ADDICS there. And then also look us up on our newest social media platform, TikTok. Look for the Screen Addicts Podcast. Steven's been doing some really cool reviews over there as well. And soon I'm going to start reviewing some of the stuff I've been watching. As for me and all my killers out there, good night.
Adios, amigos.
Thank you for listening to the Screen Addicts Podcast.
Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with a brand new beard hedger. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the beard hedger allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet.